can live, you can laugh, you can love. Life with SuJay. Oh,
And hello, we welcome you to Live with SuJay. But we are excited in this Black History and Women's History Month. We are so excited. This is my 40th year of ministry and minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I started in a church in Harlem called the Union Baptist Church of Harlem in the village of Harlem. And today we have guests from there, and we also have guests who are part of this wonderful Black Women in Ministry initiative. The Lilly Foundation just gave us a $1 million grant to advance and place Black women in ministry. The concept is 25 Black senior pastors will mentor 25 Black mentees. Both will win because the senior pastors will get help in shaping the life, and they also get staffing help. And the younger woman in ministry will get the opportunity to serve in ministry and be elevated. And so we know a lot of times in history, Black women haven't really been placed. And so we're intentional about helping build the kingdom of God. So joining me today for this wonderful discussion are some of the women who are part of this wonderful program, but also my partner who's in ministry, the pastor now of Union Baptist Church in the village of Harlem, Pastor Brian Scott. And I'm going to start with you because you weren't there when I started my ministry, but you were there as the pastor. How important is it to help house this Black Women in Ministry initiative?
Well, I think it's so important to be a part of what God is doing. And then it's important to know how to continue in the spirit and the legacy of Union Baptist Church, to embrace the spirit and then to extend that in coming generations.
So you have about 12 women in ministry on your team.
Yes.
How important is
Yes.
that for the women who serve with you?
I'm grateful that it has come at such an opportune moment in the history of the nation, and then in the history of the life of the church, as this pandemic has left us with a longing for leadership. I see it as God's timing, and I see it as being timely. So I really do see God's hand at work, aligning all of these.
So you mentioned history and my sisters. Now, I was blessed as you were for many of us. We had ordination councils. In my ordination council, I had the late Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, who was a game changer. I had W. Franklin Richardson. I had Dr. Gardner C. Taylor. I had a man named Benjamin Whipper. I had all of these wonderful people under the leadership of the Reverend Dr. Ollie B. Wells, my father in the ministry. But I was molded by great men who helped to shape me. You are the first generation that is able to shape another woman who's coming into ministry. How important is that to you? I'll start with you, Tamika Moore. You're the daughter of a preacher, but you're also a pastor yourself. How important is that to you?
It's so very important. This, as we see happening, we hear a lot. The future is female, but I believe that the future is not just right now, but it's always been female. We thank you to women like you that have helped to pave the way, to plow the way, I should say. And women such as myself, we're able to pave the way. You all helped us to show that there was a way, that women could indeed speak what thus saith the Lord. And women such as myself, we're able to pave the way to make it a little bit easier for the generation that comes behind us.
So, Reverend Cynthia Diaz, you have a mobile ministry, something that's not the norm in any respect. But my first time coming back to New York as the U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, you were running the women's ministry, the Women's Center at New York Theological Seminary, and you invited me back. I can't tell you how important that was to me to be received by a sister. How important is this moment for you to be a mentor for other Black women coming into ministry?
Amen. Thank you, Ambassador SuJay, and certainly Pastor Scott and the other panelists. And we're so grateful to the Lilly Foundation. You know, Lilly has poured into seminaries, but New York Theological in particular, as well as others. So this is a great moment in time and in this ministry. For me, it kind of brings it full circle. It's connecting the dots, if you will, with my own origins. You know, culturally, as a Latina growing up in the Bronx, as a Cuban Puerto Rican Latina growing up in the Bronx, I was surrounded by a wealth of women in my family. So even though we weren't talking ministry, those were the beginnings of ministry because they taught me how to love, how to serve, how to share. And so now to be able to take all of the jewels, the precious jewels that have come from men in ministry who have mentored me, I just want to give them a plug, right? But to be able to share all of who I have been from the origin of my life, and then in the continued spectrum of men pouring into my life. And my ministry, as you know, is combined with law, which is all male dominated, primarily white male dominated. But to bring all of that together and now to be able to mentor women in ministry to continue the work that was started at New York Theological Seminary and to now use it in this forum where now women and men are being mentored in the process, but one woman in particular, the mentee right now is awesome. It's just awesome. And she's flourishing and blossoming.
Wonderful to hear. So Reverend Tisha Williams Dixon, Tisha Dixon Williams, God bless you. You are now serving in a church, and I want you to tell us the historical moment that happened for you as you became pastor. Now, I need to preface this with saying I live in the community in the summer. It's a summer resort that was founded by 3 Black women, but it's a community that a whole lot of people didn't wake up to go to church on Sunday morning. We did the beach well, but we didn't wake up to go to church. Her church is not only packed now, it's overflowing. Please tell us the historic moment that happened for you as you came to the church and the name of the church.
Sure. So thank you so much, Ambassador SuJay, Pastor Scott, and certainly to my 2 amazing women that are in this Lily cohort with me, among so many others. It's an honor. So I am the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton, a 96-year-old historic African-American church in Bridgehampton, New York, about as far east as you can get. Next stop is Ireland. That's what I always tell people. And about 3 years ago now, I came there to visit. And, you know, the sort of ritual we have where you address the congregation during the visiting time, and I noticed they did not have a pastor. I offered my help and my services because I understand how delicate a situation that is. A church without a pastor is usually a church in turmoil. And I could not be an able-bodied clergy person and not offer my support. What I offered was to be able to teach Bible study if they needed and serve the ordinances. I did not know that a year later, they would open up the office of the pastor and start candidating, and they asked me to throw my hat in the ring. And a year after that, after 18 candidates, it came down to 2. And on April 15th, 2018, I was elected as the first woman pastor of the First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton. So it was a momentous and amazing occasion.
And I was one of the reference letters for her.
For sure.
So this is my summer pastor, but we've been talking about references and relationships and how important that is. And so now the women who are coming and being molded under you as mentees will have a relationship, but they'll also have a reference. If they need to go to another place after serving with you, they'll have not only the opportunity and experience, but you can make a call. How important is it now for the network of sisters to be able to be in the place that you are? And are you growing yourself by going through this experience? I'm going to start with Tamika.
I have absolutely been growing in leaps and bounds in just the 2 weeks that I've been, 3 months, I'm sorry, that I've been with this great sisterhood. This is so important. We are out in the public eye, and a lot of times we are unable to bring our full selves to the process. And so this provides for us a much needed safe space to take the mask off, to take the makeup off, to cry if we need to, in a no judgment zone. And so many times I log on feeling depleted, not just as a leader outside of my home, but inside of my home as a solo parent. And I always log off feeling refreshed. As we say in church, you won't leave the same way you came. And so this is so needed for me. And I've been able to develop relationships outside of this, like with Pastor Tish. And we can talk to each other offline, beyond the 9 to 5 hours, to just say, sis, I need a voice that sounds like mine. I need to talk to a face that looks like mine. I need to understand someone that understands the struggle. While we do struggle together as women, I believe that women of color, specifically Black women, have our own unique struggle. And so this is so important to my growth and development, not just as a minister, but as a woman.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And if you're watching us today on YouTube, we don't want you to log off. In fact, we want you to go to that button that says subscribe. We want you to give us a thumbs up, and we want you to share this so that you'll be with us for the weeks that we're following us, and be with us for the weeks that we're on air. But we want you to get the best of Black women ministers. Not only are they making history, but they're game changers. It's no more a stained glass ceiling. They already went through that. But this is about changing the game where other women will have the opportunity to be shaped and molded by other Black women. We call it the Real Black Women in Ministry Thrive Initiative. And REAL stands for relationships, equipping and expanding and exposing, access and altitude, and leadership development and legacy. So, Reverend Cynthia Diaz, what legacy do you want to leave? You've been in a lot of worlds. I've followed you like you followed me. What's the legacy move for you?
I think the legacy move has changed radically, I believe, in this particular season in our nation and in the world. And so for me, with the mobile ministry, with the International House of Hope and Healing, the focus from the inception has been on hope and healing. It is what we call an ACTS community based on Reverend Wanda M. Lundy's dissertation and doctoral work. It is an authentic community transforming spiritually. So if there's a legacy inside and outside of the church, in my family, without, it is to tap into our authentic selves, to be able to provide a space that all voices can come to the table, they can be heard, and they can be shared. And certainly last night's session with the mentors, thank you so much for your transparency, for showing us and giving us access to what it was like to go through a process before a group of senators, and then to buttress that with Brother Shank coming on, a man from a totally different world. It's transforming all of us as we tap into our authentic selves, and as Sister Tamika has indicated, and as we share and develop new relationships. This is awesome.
Thank you.
So in essence, it's to be real.
It's being real.
Right.
She's sharing, I was the U.S. ambassador at large for international religious freedom in the Obama administration. And it was a Senate confirmation hearing process I had to go through, in addition to all the other processes. And so she's referring to that. And we had some of the presenters and some of the people who helped me be real as I went through those Senate confirmation processes. So I want to thank you again. That's Reverend Rob Shank, Dr. Sabrina Dent, and you can look them up. They've made such a difference. Now, Reverend Tisha Williams. Now, it's legacy time for you, but you're a little younger than a couple of us. I'm a boomer. I'll put it out there. So you're not necessarily into legacy time, but we've been talking about fighting for the soul of a nation. How do you fight for the soul of this nation?
I fight for the soul of this nation by not being afraid to confront what ails this nation. I think what we cannot afford to do in this season as people of color, as women, is to no longer sweep under the rug what is ailing us. If there's a time, if anything, if this season has taught us anything, as I like to say, COVID is a snitch. It doesn't create problems, it reveals them. But I think now that so many things have been exposed, this is the time to attack them. We cannot afford to put Band-Aids on things anymore. So part of my legacy and part of my healing for the soul of the nation is to speak truth to power and not be afraid to do so. I feel very blessed and privileged to have a platform that I have with the First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton, and I want to use it not just to fight for the souls of people, but to help heal the souls of people and cure what ails them.
Awesome. Now, I must admit, I'm a pre-COVID pastor. I had 32 years in inner city New York, 32 years in inner city New York, wonderful congregations, Mariners Temple Baptist Church, Bronx Christian Fellowship, and the wonderful Wall Street Lunch Hour Ministry were exceptional. But I was a pre-COVID pastor. COVID had not happened. So Pastor Scott, you now are watching women do ministry in a COVID season, and there's going to be a post-COVID season. How is it to watch women and see us transform and see creative new ministries? What is it like for you as a male pastor and my partner in this to see what's happening for women as they're being transformed?
Well, it's interesting. You should ask that question. I was actually just turning that over in my mind earlier this week. There's a passage of scripture in Acts around 8, where the scripture talks about the persecution of the early church and how that persecution caused the gospel to be sent in other directions as it scattered the early believers. We don't have persecution, but we do have a pandemic that has scattered and also surfaced. It's scattered us, but it's also surfaced something in us. And what a rich experience it's been to watch God use this season to surface new leadership and to scatter us to really live out this gospel in a way that's spirit driven. So as pastor, it's been really, it's been a real jaw dropper to watch God surface leadership in women in this season that never would have happened aside from this pandemic.
Awesome, awesome. So, Reverend Cynthia Diaz, this mobile ministry, you've actually outfitted a van, a mobile unit, put a TV ministry in it, and you actually go to the people. You were doing that with your law firm as well. How are you changing the game?
Changing the game is bringing the ministry to the people. The oldest, the most seasoned member of our community is 97 years young. And Miss Cora, lives in Westbury, Long Island. And she's on every week. But to be able to go to her house with a mobile ministry and to meet her where she's at, it's just awesome. What the foundation of hope and healing is basically meeting people where they are. So my youngest son is an entrepreneur. Both of my sons are entrepreneurs, but he's a videographer and a photographer. And he purchased this black school bus that we are now using for the ministry. And following in his mama's footsteps, he only employs people that look like us. So he's put together a group of young men, and they have faithfully worked on transforming that black school bus into a mobile technical unit that can go across the country. It's outfitted even with a bathroom in it. So that we can take ministry wherever the people are.
I love it. Now, she gave a plug for her son. So I'm a mom of 2 guys. I got to give a little plug. I know we deal with women in ministry, but my youngest son, Christopher, is an entrepreneur, 4th generation entrepreneur, and he has developed what's called the U Experience. If you go to the letter U, theuexperience.com, and they're creating a bubble for people who have to work online remotely, but are in college and want the college experience. So go to theuexperience.com and you can be in that semester for the fall semester. And my oldest son, Sam Cook, MD, finished medical school and is starting his residency. So you can't have him yet. He's got to do his little work, but they're both single and eligible. So we're going to go on from there. So to Reverend Tamika, how are you changing the game? So many people say you got to think outside the box, but you're not even in a box. There is no box. How are you changing the game?
By starting inside my home, I always tell people that the first church that I pastor is the Giroux Church, and that's my household. And as Pastor Tish said, as we're working through changing the soul of our nation, I start with my household. Each and every day, we work to instill love, diversity, patience, kindness, and making sure that I'm preparing my children to be citizens of the world. Every day, I work not to coddle them. I work to build not just their intelligence, their mental intelligence, but their emotional intelligence, and to help to move them each and every day to be faithful citizens of the kingdom and faithful citizens of this world. So I start inside my home.
And you have 2 children under the age of 7, is that correct?
Absolutely. I have a 3, soon to be 4-year-old, and I have a 5-year-old.
Wonderful. Now, Reverend Tisha, Now, we're in this beach community, which I love. So I'm a beach baby. I'm a beach boomer. I'm on the beach every day the sun comes out. And one of the things I saw on a Sunday morning, I do take my Sabbath, no matter what time of year, Reverend Tisha was baptizing in one of the oceans. We couldn't go inside the church for the baptistry, so she took the church to the ocean. Talk about other game-changing things you're doing. It was so beautiful just to watch. But tell us what other game-changing things you're doing.
So I've been committed to changing the game with creativity in preaching. This has been the most amazing. First of all, Bridgehampton is a beautiful place, and it is the perfect canvas for creativity. God is there. And so one of the ways I've committed is to changing the game is being creative in my preaching. And so not only did we bring the church to the beach, but I recently just wrapped up a series called What's a Nice Kid Like You Doing in a Place Like This, preaching about John's exile on Patmos. And I incorporated the whole mass incarceration piece and prison ministry into it. And so I actually preached from a jail cell. I preached from a courtroom and sort of walked the whole process of what that whole legal system looks like. And it has been amazing. And while it was exhausting because I felt like John on Patmos, I couldn't wait to get off Patmos. But it was very creative, and I thoroughly enjoyed the creativity that is stirring right now. So really changing the game and trying to be as creative as possible in the preaching ministry, because we are competing for airtime now. We weren't competing for airtime before unless you were already on the digital platform. And so now we have to be creative in our preaching. We have to hold let me give you this statistic. Goldfish have a 9-second attention span. Humans have an 8-second attention span. Our attention span is less than that of a goldfish. And so I think we have a responsibility not to change the gospel, but to bring it in new and fresh ways. And I try to game change by doing that.
I love it. The first time I came to you as Pat, when you were pastor, she had these bricks in the middle of the aisle. And I was like, they need to clean this up from Sunday school. Why is it still there? And it was part of her message. She was doing Rahab's rehab. And she was talking about going around, and it was just like so powerful. So the creativity is powerful because she gives the visuals. So I'm going to ask all of you, and your mobile ministry, Reverend Diaz, is powerful. It's doing new things. Reverend Tamika, not only are you busting down walls, you're just busting down everything. And so we're excited because I know your family, I've seen your formation from a young womanhood to now. And so I'm excited for all three of you. I'm going to ask one last question to everybody. What's one thing you're excited about in terms of being a Black woman in ministry? Not just being in this initiative, but what's one thing you're excited about being a Black woman in ministry? Because you are making history. Whether they record it in the headlines or not, you're making history and you're changing the game. I'm going to ask Reverend Tamika one thing.
I'm excited about seeing the promises of God being fulfilled in my life as I lean in to all that he speaks to me, as I hear him saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. No longer hesitating, no longer allowing my reservations or own personal prejudice to get in the way, but leaning in and leaving that legacy behind in the process.
Reverend Diaz, what's one thing you're excited about in terms of being a Black woman in ministry?
The theme for us this year is the dawn of destiny, the dawn of a new day. That's it. I'm excited about the dawn of a new day. It's the best of times and the worst of times, but it's God's time, and that's our destiny.
Reverend Williams?
I'm excited about being the keeper of the story of where we are right now. I'm excited that 200, 300, 500 years from now, someone will read or see one of my sermons and know what was going on in the world because I told the story. I'm excited about that.
Well, you've heard the story from Black women, about Black women in ministry, for Black women in ministry. We're excited about being partners for the next 4 years. We're going to be co-sojourners and sojourners on this wonderful, wonderful journey that the Lilly Endowment has been able to give us. Pastor Scott joining together with me in partnership with the Union Baptist Church, my home family. I'm the first daughter. I got to give you all a shout out all the time. And we thank all of you for joining us. You can join us here. We're going to be talking about Black women in ministry on Live with SuJay, but don't you miss being here. Do that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, give us a comment. We want to hear from you, but you'll be hearing from other dynamic women who are in the Real Black Women in Ministry Thrive initiative in weeks to come. Black History, Women's History Month, but we just making history. It doesn't matter when you record it or when you see it, we are there. Dr. Scott, thank you for being a supporter of women in ministry. And if you can give us just one more shout out in terms of why this initiative is important and why it's important to record our history.
Well, it's important to record our history because we have to be in control of our story. Nobody can tell our story like we can tell our story. And for far too long, American history has not valued our story. So we must affirm who we are by telling our own story. And not only by telling our own story, but by taking our place in making sure that all of God's people and these Black women in ministry get to the promised land, the fullness of everything that God has for them, so that there are no possibilities in their plot. They have left it all on top of the ground and exhausted all opportunity. So that's what I'm excited about. And that's what I believe I'm called to help you in this season.
Well, we are so delighted, ignited. Anyone who wants to support Black women in ministry, we have an email address, BWIM, which stands for Black Women in Ministry, BWIM Thrive50@gmail.com. And we'd be glad to hear from you. We are so excited you stayed with us, and we don't want to exhaust you by being on here. She said we have a short attention span, but we hope in these times and these minutes that we shared together that you've been excited, ignited, and delighted as we are. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you the next time. Thank you. Let's give everybody a hand, thumbs up, and we are so glad to have you. We're applauding you. Thank you.